Welcome, welcome. We are ready to start into our. Let's try this again. Waiting for YouTube to go live. And we are live here on Facebook. Welcome. I'm glad that you guys are here. I'm waiting for it to reload. Let's see if this reloads. All right, we got people coming on. Welcome you guys this morning to our reading in Fear Hunters. We're going to be going about the topic of discovering your strengths. Discovering your strengths. Pretty powerful morning yesterday. I'm just waiting for YouTube to get going here. Waiting for the live streaming to go up. And we are going live here on Instagram. Welcome everybody coming into the room here. Want to say good morning and thank you for joining us. It is the top of the hour. Just want to say welcome to this episode of Discovering Your Strengths. We are going live here at 8 a.m., the top of the morning. Yesterday, we had a big morning. We were talking about shame yesterday morning and how important that was in going back and healing the wound and disarming bombs. And how important that is, showing compassion. Compassion was such a big topic yesterday as we dove in, and really powerful. And hopefully a lot of you were able to get some homework done. Tell me, what were your takeaways there that you learned from that? I love it with a comment down below. Was there any breakthroughs for you? What was the aha moments? What were the nuggets that you discovered as a result of it? Did anybody do any of the homework or any of the questions to dive deeper? Will, welcome from Celebration. David from Hermosa Beach. Memory, good morning. Glad that you're here. Mahalo, Janet. Good morning. Glad that you're here as well. Thanks for joining us. YouTube is having a lot of problems this morning, so it might be where we have to redo this. Excuse me. And see if that if streaming is going to work. This morning, you guys, we are on chapter 13. This is episode 14, but chapter 15 or chapter 13, and it's called Discovering Your Strengths. We're going to be starting on page 151. Page 151. I'm just trying to get YouTube to work, but it looks like it's struggling. So. Bear with me here for just a minute. Welcome and say hi from where you're coming in from. Nadia and Jessica, welcome from Anaheim. Let's see who else we got here. Pat from Boulder. Rochelle from Fullerton. Welcome, Debbie. Glad that you're here from Florida. Let's see who else is coming in. Lake Ontario Press. Thank you for joining us this morning. Glad that you're doing well. And let me see. Let me see if I can get this figured out. I'm just trying to get YouTube going for folks, but it might be having a big time problem. So we will try one more time, and then that's it. I'm not gonna go for it. Grab your book if you guys can. Grab your journal, and let's get ready to rock and roll here. And let me see if I can get this to go live one more time. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee, and we're gonna get rolling. Big reading today. Discovering your strengths, and this third part of the book is probably the most, in my opinion, not just the most exciting, but the first part and the second part that you guys have already gone through, diagnosing fear and shame, worry, anxiety, depression, you name it. All of those traits, those conditions, and maybe things that you've been fighting, and then being able to diagnose them, know what you're dealing with. And we might be up here. Bear with me. Here we go, guys. Thanks for your patience. I just want to make sure that these guys get connected with us. So appreciate it. Let's make sure we go live here. So sorry about the delay. Let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. All right, man. It's not working. So, oh well, we got to rock and roll. Okay, so chapter 13, we're going to start on 151. Here's how these mornings work. I read a chapter of the book, And then with the chapter of the book, we then go into questions and we go for a little bit of a deep dive. And then after that deep dive, then we go into application. That application is me sharing a little bit of my history, my background on how I've applied this to my own life. And you can use that in your own life if you'd like. Take what you like, leave the rest. I do talk about my faith. I do talk about my testimony. I do talk about God a lot. And take what you like, leave the rest. But you know what? If you like what you're getting, keep doing exactly what you're doing. If you're frustrated, and you might be here because you're really leaning into where God's calling you, where you're being drawn to, and you might be getting the strategies that you need for once, and it could be here, and maybe it's way out of the box from what you're normally used to thinking, doing faith, and you might not have a faith background. That's okay. But I do want to let you know I'm here to provide you the strategies that are going to help you live on purpose. And the strategies are going to help you have an absolute filter for making the decisions in your life. And so many times, fear and shame and worry, all of these things are symptoms of a much greater root problem. And so Fear Hunters is about going to the root, to the core, to the foundation of those things that even subconsciously you've made agreements with, vows, lies you've been buying into. And you're making agreements with those subconsciously, and your decisions and your behaviors and how you're going about life is really frustrating. And maybe you're seeing cycles and you're kind of like, dude, this ain't me, but why are these things continuing to happen over and over again? Well, when you have these strategies in place and these filters, you're going to have an understanding of who you are, who you've been called to be, how to live that out with absolute clarity and purpose and courage. Like, sometimes some people don't know themselves from the inside out. So this has been some really challenging, big lifting work on your soul. And I understand that's a big time challenge. And so I want to let you know you're not alone. I'm glad that you're here. I want to say thank you for joining me. I know that this isn't easy work, but man, my prayer is that you've actually had some breakthroughs through this process and these mornings that we've been spending together. I really hope that you've had some breakthroughs in your life and in your personal life, in your creativity, how this has affected your work, the things that you make, the things that you do. Really, really hope that this has provided some freedom for you. So got all of our wild parrots outside, so they could be a little bit noisy today. Let's start with the reading. This first quote says, "Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. And when you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength." Arnold Schwarzenegger says that. Kelly, if you're on, we need to just somehow on YouTube let people know that that's not happening. Enter every activity without giving mental recognition to the possibility of defeat. Concentrate on your strengths instead of your weaknesses, on your powers instead of your problems. That's Paul Meyer. Discovering your strengths. 151 is the page that we're on, if you want to check this out. And let me read a little bit about my story, and then I can show you the application and how we can go a little bit further in this. So for those of you that are wondering, this is Fear Hunters, the book that I wrote that's helping you how to remove the fear and shame that stands between you and the life you are destined to live. It's a part of a 3-book bundle. And for those of you that have not got your bundle yet, this also includes my devotional, 31 Disciplines of Highly Successful Creatives, and my personal testimony book called Speed Bumps, Using Life Speed Bumps as Launching Pads. I even threw in a new little bonus that if you go to noahelias.net/book, noahelias.net/book, you're going to be able to get a free signed image of the cover. And so that's included in your purchase, which is a cool little bonus. So that is the book. Some people have been jumping on the feed going, what book is this? What are we reading from? So thought I would kind of call that out and let you know. So let's see who's on. Dan, welcome. David, welcome, buddy. Hope you're doing great. Tim, welcome. Francis, welcome. Okay, at this point in the book, I hope that you have taken the steps to become a fear hunter. I know that you have shown compassion. I hope that you have shown compassion to those feelings of rejection in your childhood and experienced freedom from the power that these traumas once held over you. The remainder of this book is intended to help you live in an abundant, fruitful, and authentic life as a fear hunter now that your fears and shame are being attacked and eliminated. This book has hopefully helped you shift the way that you think and your approach to your identity. This shift didn't come easily for me, and it didn't come right away. So press on and don't give up. It may take time. One practice that has helped me make this identity shift has been to recognize and be true to the strengths and limitations that God has given me. Knowing your strengths and limitations is essential to live on the offense, not as a victim on the defense. I have even found that many individuals and companies that I consult suffer from not knowing their strengths, weaknesses, and unique value. Operating in your strengths leaves less room for fear and shame to cause you to doubt yourself, allowing you to spend this precious energy on areas of great return. In 2008, in the 2008 recession turned out to be an emotional season in our lives. Our son was diagnosed with autism. We lost my stepmom to cancer and had to move due to financial strains. In the midst of this season, and perhaps because of it, I dove headfirst into my relationships with my mentors. I remember their kind and gentle patience with a guy like me, someone who wanted to get my calling written down on a piece of paper and walk out into the world to live it. Alongside my mentors, I went through a journey of discovering my unique abilities, gifts, passions, and how I could use them to positively impact my relationship with God, my wife, my children, and others. This breakthrough was achieved through an amazing exercise, Now Discover Your Strengths, in the book called Strength Finders 2.0. I am of the opinion that every human being would benefit greatly from reading this book. Discovering who you are supposed to be can be a lifetime of work. One of the best uses of your time would be to stop everything and take 30 minutes to measure yourself with an online Strength Finder test. This test, this online assessment, will give you the top 5 strengths that you possess, giving you tremendous insight to how you are wired. These strengths became my filter of what I say yes to and what I don't. Using this filter, I began to trim everything out of my life that I didn't play to one of my strengths. I stopped trying to fix who I wasn't and shifted that energy to playing to the strengths that I do have. I remember sitting with Steve, who came to me for some branding and consulting on his life portfolio. One of his biggest breakthroughs came when we defined his strengths rather than focusing on his weaknesses. Steve had worked for large brands that were major players in business. He had left the most recent company because he felt like he had reached his capacity for growth. He sat in his office wondering about his next move, yet hadn't taken stock of his strengths and what made him great. It's hard to sell yourself if you don't know what you are selling. I encourage Steve to take a moment to measure his strengths. Knowing where your strengths lie serves as a filter because it allows you the chance to cut out the commitments that you have made that aren't in your wheelhouse. Fear makes its way into our lives when we start to second guess and don't feel 100% confident in what we are offering to the world. Fear and shame then get crafty in our heads. We feel like imposters, liars, posers, fearing that someone will find out that we really don't know what we are doing. When I discovered my strengths, I was able to stop guessing and finally spend time usefully. My greatest use of time based on my strengths includes drawing or creating a painting, mentoring, brand architecture, consulting, and writing. Having confidence in these strengths allowed me to trim the fat of the focus on my top strengths, which meant that I would have to stop spending my time on things that weren't a major value and impact. As an example of eliminating my weak areas, I really disliked anything having to do with getting copies made, doing bookkeeping and reports. However, my publishing business in the art world requires that these things get taken care of. I did this work for years because it needed to be done and because I wanted to control every aspect of my business. I didn't trust anyone. I feared that no one could do it as well as me, and I wanted and needed to know exactly everything that was going on. This controlling mindset is a way of thinking that will run you ragged. I realized it was the equivalent of a mechanic not only repairing the engine, but also hand sewing the upholstery of the vehicles he worked on. Yes, I can do the bookkeeping, but it is my greatest use of my time here. The moment I started to rid those unproductive things out of my life, fear and shame showed up like crazy. People often get themselves into trouble by saying yes to everything that comes their way. Many do this to feed the ego of self-worth or because they fear the conflict and potential rejection that would arise from saying no. And they also fear that the income they would pass up would be devastating and that they will lose out on future opportunities. They fear that the industry will pass them up. Saying yes to everything is a clear sign of not knowing your identity and your strengths. I was the king of yes. That's how I got myself into so much trouble with my time, my talent, and my money. I remember when this idea hit home for me. I'd spent the majority of the beginning of my career taking on any job I could find that would pay $1. I did everything from painting custom clothes at Nordstrom's to doing tattoos on models for Motorola phone commercials. I was the guy that people would call for the most out-of-the-box jobs that no one else could do. There's one job in particular that will likely go down in my career as the most useless and time-consuming job. It was just before Easter, and a friend of mine invented a large ceramic dinosaur egg that was sealed and had candy inside, and she needed 3,000 of them painted in a short amount of time. I will never forget how upset I was at taking the job because there was nothing unique about the painting that was being done on them. Anyone could paint the spots and so-called art on them. Regardless of the income, I would have been wiser for me to broker the job and oversee the other artists, freeing me up to work on jobs that were unique to my skill set. Life becomes extremely fun when you operate in the sweet spot of your calling and your strengths. Now, you might be saying, yes, but I need to make money and I'm not the one who has to get these jobs, and I'm the one who has to get these jobs done. I understand. However, I'm asking you to do two things. Move forward each day, staring fear and shame in the face, and eliminate the current daily activities and commitments that don't fit your strengths and sweet spot. As you move forward in each day, watch what you say yes to and don't be bullied by fear and shame. We don't need to allow shame and fear to bully us around each day, forcing us to say yes to our false selves out of fear that others won't accept us or that they will walk away if we hold our ground in truth of who we are. Take a moment to discover your strengths and what makes you great. It's one of the most powerful tools to understanding what you have to offer. This filter is one of the greatest preventative measures to avoid signing yourself up for trouble. Fear and shame don't get an entrance into your life when you set healthy boundaries. Filtering the choices and agreements that you make is powerful. You become super aware of the people you allow into your life. You filter every job that you say yes to. Your perception of time transforms as you realize that you don't want to spend a moment of your life on anything that doesn't matter. Live in what you are made to do, not just what you're paid to do. Boundaries are a great thing, especially when it comes to your identity. I spent the majority of my life reacting to everyone else's needs while forfeiting my own and wondering why I was so upset. I didn't know what I had to offer because I didn't know my strengths. It's hard to be effective when you don't know your assets. Stop for a moment and measure your strengths. It can be a short exercise that will have immediate and powerful results. You will then have a filter, and this filter will help protect you from yourself. Okay? A few words about work. We need to integrate our physical and spiritual realities in order to experience wholeness in our lives. So first we talked about strengths. We're going into a little bit about work. It's very important. So one of my quotes is, we need to integrate our physical and spiritual realities in order to experience wholeness in our lives. I glorified you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. That was Jesus of Nazareth. Basically, work is not a four-letter word. I glorified you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. Jesus was on a mission. He was on assignment. He knew his strengths. He knew what he was wired to do, what his assignment and the calling on his life was, and he knew exactly how to operate in that. Listen to this. I remember being a kid and staying at my grandparents' houses during the summers. I would often be woken up to my grandfather fixing breakfast and heading out the door at 4:30 a.m. It was like clockwork. One grandfather worked for Pacific Bell Phone Company for 36 years, and the other worked for Quaker State Oil for 36 years. One worked without missing a single day in those 36 years. He was a great example of loyalty and integrity when it came to a work ethic. These memories have stuck with me and helped me navigate my work here on earth. I believe that a majority of us truly want to live in our calling, knowing that we are in God's will. We desire to live with purpose and passion. I understand the urgency to know your calling and the challenge to find it. One of the most important things that I have learned is that your calling is likely what you are already doing in the workplace, and a shift in your perspective on work might reveal your powerful kingdom purpose as well. I purposely experienced this cognitive shift as I wrestled with how my career fit into the larger picture of the calling and discovering God's will for my life. I came to faith when I was 9 years old and became a full-time creative at the age of 16, making art, signs, graphics, murals, and visual art for businesses and clients. As I grew up, I focused on doing all those things all those things more and better, becoming as successful in life as I could. I soon reached a ceiling of complexity when it came to my success. I had reached the top of what I could hope for in my worldly career. My life was successful, but I didn't feel like it was significant. The moment I learned about significance and God wanting to use my life for his glory, everything changed. I asked myself, now what? What should I work on? Do I continue doing art? If so, how do I use it? The New Testament shows us a great example of calling in a career through the Apostle Paul. Before Paul was commissioned by God, he was highly educated and highly ranking strategic religious leader. In line to be the next great basically leader, Paul was charged with hunting down and destroying a new sect of Judaism called Christianity. Paul had a talent and a passionate drive, but his life was pointed at the wrong target. Paul was a tent maker by trade. His career would take him around cities, often requiring him to travel long distances. And one day, the Lord interrupted one of his journeys on the road to Damascus. God temporarily blinded Paul to get his attention and show him the reality of his presence and existence. Once restored, Paul became passionate for the Lord, spreading the good news of who Jesus is and how people could come to know him. Here is where it gets interesting. If I'm Paul, the moment I come to the reality of who Jesus is and the reality of the kingdom, I would want to abandon everything that doesn't align with this and make my full-time occupation being a traveling evangelist, right? Yet despite this radical conversion, Paul continued to make tents. What can we learn about our calling, purpose, and talent and career from this example? Paul had some decisions to make as it pertained to his time, talent, and money. He had to figure out how he was going to stop putting points on the scoreboard of his life. Stop looking at how he's going to put points on the scoreboard of his life and start putting points on the scoreboard of heaven. He didn't abandon tent making to become a full-time ministry. He used his genius and expert skills as a tent making to fund his mission. More importantly, Paul leveraged his relationships and time during the week with his rope suppliers and fabric vendors to be used for the kingdom. He ministered to them and traveled as a tent maker, preaching the gospel wherever he went. Paul wasn't working for the Lord just on the weekends. He was on the mission of all time. In my office, I help individuals strategically align their passions with their unique talents and capabilities. I mostly find that people hate their jobs and want to do more, feel more, and have purpose. It requires first understanding God's direction for their personal life and then discovering how God can use their abilities and talents for a kingdom like he did with Paul. We all need to eat, put a roof over our head, and support our lifestyles and families. Is it possible to live in the sweet spot of doing what you love most while making an impact and meeting your needs? You might continue working on a normal job that may seem boring and lifeless, but with a new paradigm shift like Paul, you might come to see that God can use that boring career to support kingdom work on the side. This career might be a stepping stone that allows you to fund new ventures and enhance ministries that the Lord presents as you step into a living for him. Part of being a fear hunter is taking a daily inventory of these questions and areas of life to make sure that I'm stepping into an ideal life that God intended for me. Listen, we have to work. It's essential to our life, and the Lord knows it. The question is, how will you leverage it? Will we coast as a ghost, or will we awaken and engage for God's kingdom? Paul leveraged his talent and skills to make money and further his kingdom. He took his entrepreneurship skills to help plant leaders and establish the first church. All Paul did was say yes to his assignment and stepped into risk and danger. He didn't have anyone providing him with a manual of 10 steps to evangelism and church planting to build God's kingdom. Paul stepped out in faith every day, waiting to see where God was at work and marching into the mix to help, using his vision, strategy, and talent. God took a guy who was good at tents and made him realize he was great at leveraging relationships, establishing a network, and getting people engaged. So the next time you think your life is boring and you don't have anything to contribute to earth and God's kingdom, I would urge you to sit down and list what you are good at and where you come alive. Like Paul, you will probably see making tents as your career space, but your greatest contribution lies in your heart, in what you know. Ask God to illuminate and reveal the other dimensions of your soul and other talents that he can use to make an impact. Keep your job and make the people at your workplace your mission field for the gospel. Then look around your community and life and find areas where you can add small doses of your passions or areas that make you come alive for God's kingdom. This could be serving, singing, meeting with others, helping build, helping plan, helping feed, teach, anything you naturally enjoy that is beneficial to others. Paul is one of the best fear hunters I've read about. He could have easily remained self-absorbed, pitying himself for his early life of being a Christian hater and killer. Instead, he overcame himself with God's help and focused every day on the reality of God's grace. Paul didn't have time for fear. He was focused on God's agenda of winning people's souls and depositing as much of God's currency into eternity as possible. I meet many Christians who think that the point of life is only to fall in love with God and worship him as much as possible. While this is healthy from a purely spiritual perspective, I believe it is critical to recognize that we follow and model our life after a creator. He is in constant state of newness and growth. Jesus rested while on his mission, but he was on a mission all of the time. Work is a part of God's design. Jesus was here to do the will of the Father. As James, the brother of Jesus, rightly points out, the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. So you can have all the faith in the world, my friends that are listening to this, but without deeds and doing and proving yourself to be a disciple, we're literally existing. It says, I was reading in John this morning, if you really do love me, you'll obey my commandments, and so prove yourselves to be my disciples. You will show proof by the fruit of our lives. We need to integrate our physical and spiritual realities in order to experience wholeness in our lives. Meaning, it's one thing to be spiritual. It's one thing to know the truth, but it's another one to live it. We are called to live out our faith in all areas of our life, and our work is no exception. Faith is a mental and spirit. I just got lit up with this while I was reading this. Listen, I feel compelled to share this challenge with you guys. Evangelism is not optional. And there's a lot of Christians and believers out there that are saying evangelism is just for some people that are good at evangelism, and preaching is good for some, and like all these different roles. Let me be very, very clear with you. Evangelism is a command. It's for everybody, and it's expected of everybody. So my question to you is this: where are you evangelizing? Who are you having coffee time with to love on, to share on, and to share what God's doing in your life and bringing hope and light to a world that is dark and people that are on life support? Where are you doing that? How many people are in eternity as a result of this last week? Who and where was the last person that you led to Christ? Who and where, excuse me, who and where have you led a person to the hope that is in Christ? When was the last time that happened? Or are you just defaulting that to others? It's a command. We are all called to live out our faith in all areas of life, and our work is no exception. Faith is a mental and spiritual position that we hold, and the evidence that it has taken root in our lives is expressed through taking action. Living out our faith can be intimidating because it often involves risk and danger. Are you looking to get comfortable, or are you looking to grow and become the fullness of who we were meant to be? Is your life full of new risk, new work, and new steps? Our lifetime is one large action plan that stretches from the beginning to the end. The moment you internalize this idea, your perspective on growing older will change. Lost people live for the here and now and desire to gather enough riches to retire and grow old on a white sandy beach or golf course, yet lack an eternal focus or purpose. Their stories, experiences, and wisdom could be used to help others well into their golden years. I may someday reach an age where no one will hire me, but my life will be far from retired. Retirement is not an option for me. I haven't found anywhere in God's word talking about retirement. The last third of our life is when we will have accumulated the most wisdom and carried the most influence, knowing the most people we have ever known. This is prime impact time and is not the time to lay off the throttle. Working on the kingdom while you are here on earth has major perks and is full of excitement. It's like gold digging. You work a vein of gold, which leads to other veins of gold that spring from it. As you carry out the current assignment, no matter how small, the Lord reveals new opportunities and expands the assignment. These new assignments include new relationships and opportunities for collaboration. However, this only happens in tandem with working out your faith and being in an action mode. This way of life isn't rooted in duty or enforced obligation. We are compelled to live and act in faith as an act of worship and an offering of our love to God. I'll say that again. We are compelled to live and act in faith as an act of worship and an offering of our love back to God. Romans 12:1 says, therefore, in light of God's mercy, offer yourself as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to him. This is our greatest act of worship. And don't be so accustomed to this culture, just dragging it down to its level of immaturity. God brings out the best of you. And the best thing that you can do for him is what he's done for you. The greatest act of worship is that we partner with him. Let's take a look at the questions here. So get ready for this. You can go through these questions yourself. You can replay this and you can listen to these and you can write them down. Number 1. What strengths did you discover when you took the Now Discover Your Strengths assessment? What surprised you? Number 2. What strength have you been most neglecting to use for kingdom purposes? Number 3. Write out 3 ways that you can better draw boundaries on your time in light of knowing your strengths. Number 4. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your passion for your current career? Number 5. What would you need to make it a 10? Number 6. If you could design the ideal scenario of using your current job as leverage to underwrite your ministry or passion, what would you do? What are your ideas? If you didn't have to make money from them, what are the dream jobs or assignments that you've always wanted? Write out at least 5 ideas. Number 8. What is holding you back from building, launching, or investigating the possibilities of these assignments? Is it time? Is it structure? Is it other team members? Is it resources? Or is it self-discipline? So that is chapter 13. Chapter 14, tomorrow, we are going to be going into the difference between a calling and a career. This is a big one for a lot of folks. Tomorrow, tomorrow's Saturday. Monday, I'm going to be talking about this at 8 a.m. Pacific. The difference between your calling and your career. This is a big one. And as we move more and more through part 3 of Fear Hunters, you're going to notice that part 1 is diagnosing. Number 2, now that you've been diagnosed, kind of like on the operating table of where your fears and shame and the things that you're dealing with and the wounds and the lies and the traumas and going back and disarming the bombs, the second part is, now that those were diagnosed, the second part is going in there and teaching you how to do the self-diagnosing as well as the removal. Now, here's the interesting thing. Now that I can help you get healed and those areas firmed up, forgiveness, trauma set free, wounds, lies, getting those things removed out of your life, part 3 is all about stepping into your calling. Stepping into the sweet spot of your strengths, stepping into what's next. Most people don't go into healing or go into getting themselves fixed and dialed in because they've made being a victim and being injured literally their lifestyle and their identity. Because they know nothing of what to look forward to. The fear of success of, if I actually got myself straight, what would I do with that? If I actually got myself straight if I got myself dialed in, aligned with my strengths, and literally got over myself and stopped playing the victim and stopped being just wounded all the time, that is a hamster wheel and a cycle of a false identity. But why don't people step into discovering who God's called them to be? They believe that they're going to be asked to go move around the world and get placed in some assignment that doesn't make them come alive. That's not true. God designed you on purpose, for a specific purpose, for a specific assignment. Your family of origin, your background, where you came from, has very little to do with how he's going to use you. If you look at how God has used the most influential people in the Bible, you will look at two things. One, the family they came from doesn't define them. Number two, their career nowhere near matches the pedigree of their kingdom impact. Let me say that again. Let me be very, very clear. The most influential people that I've ever met, leaders in the faith, you take David, you take Solomon, you take all of them. Look back at who their parents were and the line of who their grandparents were, etc. So look at their family of origin. Second, look at their career. The career and the family of origin did not define how big and how impactful they were in the kingdom. You realize this, right? So why are you defining who you are from where you were born, where you grew up, your deficiencies, and your pedigree of your career? Your career is what you do for underwriting. It's not an identity. Easier said than done. Your career is what you do. It's not who you are. However, I cannot divorce what I believe from what I do. So for me to try to keep the gospel, for me to try to keep things out, and try to keep things as, people are going to spend, listen, this is so important. When it comes to your social media, well, how much should I share my faith? Or how much should I really be who God's called me to be? I'm afraid of losing followers. And if I lose followers and likes, people are going to unfollow me. And then I'm not making money. And then I'm not going to actually, you know what, dude? Let me be very clear. If you want your life to be big, God's got to be in it. Number two, it will cost you more time, more stress, and more effort to thread the needle of trying to keep God out of the message of your life and who you are in your marketing than it is like to just be who you've been called to be. My conviction and what propels me, at the end of my life, God is going to look and I'm going to stand before him, and he's going to go, what did you do with my son? And what did you do with what I put in front of you? What he put in front of each one of us is your time, your money, and your talent. How was that all leveraged? How did you spend and plant that seed to bear fruit that will last forever? Things that will be eternal. Are you today investing in things that have eternal value that will last forever? You see what I'm saying? Are you spending all of your precious time, your money, and your influence in your relationships? Are you spending your life? Are you wasting your life? Or are you investing your life into those things that will last eternally? I think it's really, really interesting. I think it's pretty profound, actually, that we've got so many people that have like 25 followers, 50 followers, 100 followers, you name it. How many friends you got on Facebook? How many people that are on Instagram? You've got practically a mega church. You have a mega church at your fingertips, but it's all being wasted on fast food content. I'm not here to make you feel worse. I'm here to challenge you. You're going to be held accountable for the time that you had on this earth. If you're sitting on social media and doing everything but just reading news, everybody else's. It's like literally not even social. Are you a solution to the world's problems and being a light in the darkness? Or are we simply just sitting here for entertainment value? Wasting away. World is passing us by. So I want to encourage you in that. And I want to challenge you in that. What are you going to do differently today? What are you going to do differently today as a result of that? Romans 12:1. Therefore, brothers and sisters, in light of God's mercy, offer yourselves as a living sacrifice. Are we laying ourselves down 100% for his purpose? Listen, if you're going to step out into your calling and leverage your career, knowing who you are from the inside out, knowing the way that you're diagnosed, knowing your blind spots, knowing your fears, knowing your lies, knowing the vows that you've made as a result of this stuff that's happened to you in the past, go back into that. That's what Fear Hunters is about. Diagnose it. Get it dealt with. Now move on into your authority. This is what it's all about. Listen, Fear Hunters on the back says, number 1, you're going to dismantle your fake identity. Number 2, you're going to establish your true identity. Number 3, you're going to move into your calling. And then 4, living out your calling. But you're going to do that with authority. My prayer is that you will get business taken care of and step into being activated in bearing and producing fruit. Fruit that will last, my friends. Fruit that will last. If you like what you're getting, keep doing exactly what you're doing. If you're ready for change, if you're ready to make things happen, not for your empire, but for his. Let me make something very, very clear. I'm going to read this to you guys. Paul says this in in 2 Corinthians 5:20. Let me be very clear. Therefore, we are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. Let's just stop with that first line. Do you realize that's who you are if you are a child of God? You are an ambassador. How does an ambassador act? An ambassador dresses differently, conducts themselves differently, represents a place that is not here. If we are on foreign soil behind enemy lines in this dark world, let's be very, very clear. We are his ambassadors, and watch, as though God were making his appeal through us. God is reconciling the world and people through us as ambassadors of Christ. We implore you on Christ's behalf, listen, be reconciled to God. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. My friends, you'll even see where Paul says, therefore we try to persuade men in that endeavor for what he's done for us. It says in 11, if I back up in the passage, it says, since then we know what it is to fear the Lord, we try to persuade men. This is all I'm doing on these social media feeds, you guys, is to spread the good news of what he's done for us. The greatest act of worship back is what we can do for him. Leveraging our time, our talent, our money, using our career as an underwriter to promote, to create, to launch, to make initiatives that can help promote what he's done for us. You guys, we're in gnarly times right now. We're in a world where they're shutting churches, they're closing, they're persecuting, they're taking anything that's faith-based and saying that there is even things called hope shaming now, guys. There's people actually getting ridiculed for providing too much hope in this world. They're saying that it's too fake, and it's actually like it's like almost like a bullying, but in the opposite way. Stop talking about hope. It's not genuine. You're not being real. I'm like, excuse me? You can destroy the four walls of a temple of a church, But the temple of God is not a church or a building. It's a person, and it's us. And you can even destroy our temple, but you will not take our soul. The Spirit of God cannot be squelched, cannot be killed. Believers are like corks. You can't sink them. They always will pop back up. And quite frankly, they can breathe underwater. The temple of God is not a building. The temple of God is you. My question is, for the next 12 hours of this day, how do you plan to be the temple to others? This gets on a very practical level. How are we nurturing the folks under the ministry of our roof, of our house, our wives, our children? How are we moving that out into the territories of our business, into our employees, into our vendors, into the places that we work, the people that we know? Are we being bold to hold a Zoom call to do a Bible study and to help people grow in that? You don't have to be a Bible scholar. You don't have to be a seminary student. You don't have to be a pastor. The church was built on believers, just believers like you and me, that have the one thing in common, that Christ died for us, forgave us of our sins, is inviting us into a grand adventure, that what we do between salvation and death is going to be measured. Our time, our talent, and our treasure. How are we going to use that to bring people to him? Listen, we can love God, great. We can worship God, great. We can listen to worship music, great. Where is everything that we are listening to and reading going to become reality in our life? Are we going to take it to the world? Are we going to draw people to Christ through our life and through our time? Hold a Zoom call. Hold a Bible study. If you can't meet with people face to face, do that. If you're comfortable and things are opening up in your city and there's new restrictions that are being lifted, whatever, open your home, your backyard, your fire pit. How can you love on people? How can you rally people? How can you serve people? You guys, I would rather end this life saying, man, I'm so grateful that we went down swinging, than not doing anything at all. I mean, it's insane. Let me read this for you really quick. Where did it go? Bear with me. Sorry, I'm in the wrong book here. Where did that fucking go? I wanted to read that. Yep, that was it. So, the footnote in 6:8 through 10. What a difference it makes to know Jesus. He cares for us in spite of what the world thinks. Christians don't have to give in to public opinion and pressure. Paul stood faithful to God, whether people praised him or condemned him. He remained active, joyous, and content in the most difficult of hardships. Don't let circumstances or people's expectations control you. Be firm as you stand true to God and refuse to compromise his standards for living. So, I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding, you guys. You have an opportunity. You have an opportunity right now to be a fragrant offering and an incredible act of worship back to him by taking yourself, laying yourself down, understanding what your strengths are, focusing on them, not sitting here focusing on being broken and being a victim, not looking at the circumstances of this world and saying, man, the world is going to hell and everything's just going to crap. But you listen, it is what it is. I don't have any control over that. Somebody asked me yesterday, what's your strategy for getting through these times? I don't get through these times. I overcome these times. How do we overcome these times? We live above these times. How do you live above the circumstances? You can get down caught in the river of it, but if you want to live above it, you better have an eternal perspective to see everything, your time, your talent, your money, everything that you do in life through a biblical world lens. God is bigger than these circumstances. His economy is bigger than these circumstances. If you truly do believe that, you will trust him. You will trust him with your job. You will trust him with your children. You'll trust him with everything, that you can lay down your life 100% for him and say, dude, I'm all in. Take me as you need me. My friend's greatest little quote says, when we are comfortable with death, we've taken away our enemy's greatest weapon. Are you really all in to the point that you are done? And you're okay with that? And you're just like, man, I feel so relieved. I don't have to be so ambitious that I have to wear myself out trying to be somebody that I'm not. I don't have to sit here and look at other people and say, man, why do they have this and why do they have that? When God's called me individually, you're going to learn tomorrow or on Monday, my calling is so unique to me that it's not going to be lived by anyone before me or after me. There's only one you, and God put you here on assignment. Are you going to live above, or are you going to get caught up in the flow of chaos? It's your life and the way that you look at your life and the way you feel about if you wake up and it's cloudy outside, oh man, what a just a terrible day. If you go surfing and there's no waves, oh, the day sucked. Did it? It's all perspective, my friends. Set your mind on the things above, not on the things of this earth. Whatever you are plugged into today is what you are going to become. What you eat, you become. Our life isn't about comfort. Our life is about fullness. It's about joy. Joy is based in Christ. And it never runs out. It never fails. And it's the one constant that never changes. However, happenings, circumstances, if your happiness is completely rooted in how well things are going, how much money there is, I've got a rude awakening for you. Get ready to be really disappointed over and over and over again. But if the fullness of who you are, your identity, and where you find your worth, and where you find your joy is found in him, Christ is the only one thing. Do you guys realize that? You will search high and low, top of the mountains, the bottom of the sea, looking for that thing that's going to provide you so-called happiness. Happiness is based on circumstances. Joy and the fullness of that joy. You guys, I dealt with depression and PTSD and anxiety and everything, but the moment I turned all that in, did the fear hunting, went in, opened my soul up, looked, where are the deficits, where's the lies, where's the vows, where did I make agreements, and did that work, and then looked at where is my true source of joy. It is in him and him alone, and no one else. Nothing else will ever come close to that, because it's what he did for us that is the joy, not anything we can ever do for him to earn it and try to perform and to try to become. Everything else, every other God, every other way will demand everything from you based on performance. And if you base anything on performance, you're dead. Grace, God's grace through his son, Jesus Christ, is the sufficient amount of love given to you that you did nothing to deserve and nothing you can do to lose it. If you receive it and take the free gift of grace, grace, my friends, is what you are living in. And that is a joy that never changes and never rots. So if that is, since that is the truth, what he said it, not me. Since that is the truth, what is your and I's response today? Is this just more knowledge that we're going to hoard? What is your response today? What risk are you stepping into? What danger are you stepping into that's going to require your faith to show up? You want to see, hey, listen, let me be very, very clear, and we'll wrap this up. I got to put a bow on this. Do you realize that if you want to experience the presence of God, if you want to experience miracles of the Creator on a daily basis, do you realize that you and the way to reveal that is to live a life of faith where your 10 and 20% of stepping into the river in faith is going to require the other 80 to 90% of miracles for him to part the waters and to hold back the water? Is there anywhere in your life? My guess is you're playing it so safe. You're playing things so conservative that you're just your little own God because you get to keep everything in your own little control. Faith will be revealed in what you do. Risk and danger. Stepping into where the stakes are so massive, only God can fill in the blanks. That's where Chantel and I wanted to be. I'm like, I want to hear from the Lord. I want to be with the Lord. I want to do his, like, step into those areas. When we stepped into the South Africa initiative with Acres, we didn't have the $270,000 to buy a home in South Africa to raise these special needs AIDS orphans. We didn't have the $90,000 a year to underwrite that and support that every year. But we said yes to the assignment. Lord, all we have is a yes. And that was in the worst time in the recession. All we're going to do is say yes. I have no idea where it's going to come from. If you're only giving money when you get it, that doesn't require faith. It doesn't require faith. Where are the decisions and our risks that we are taking in building God's kingdom where it's going to require 90% him to show up, miracles, and 10% us of stepping into that risk and that danger of saying, we're putting this is a sacrifice for us because we don't have it. Where's the faith needed if we're completely self-sufficient? God increases, we heard a great quote yesterday, God increases our insufficiencies, exposes our insufficiencies so that it will expose our dependencies upon him. He wants to do it with you. He wants to do it with you. People want to have an encounter with God. They think that they're going to turn on a praise and worship album and have an encounter. You want to have an encounter with him? Join him in what matters most. That is his work. He's just looking for incredible men and women that are willing to make themselves available to do his work through your unique abilities and geniuses and your strengths and your calling. That's why he wired you. Wouldn't that be the most exciting thing is to walk away from this study going, dude, he just downloaded to me that we get to do this in partnership. My business is dedicated to the Lord. I want you to do me a favor. As you leave here, go to generousgiving.com, generousgiving.org. Watch the videos there. You'll read story after story after story that people went all in. Hey, I'm going to wrap it up and pray for you guys. For those of you that want to get the book bundle, noahelias.net, noahelias.net, or noahelias.net/book, noahelias.net/book. You'll be able to get the book bundle plus a new bonus print, the signed print of the cover of Fear Hunters. And you can get your book copy there as we go through this study. Thank you for being there or being here. Appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great, great weekend. You can watch the replays on YouTube, on Facebook, Noah Fine Art, or here on Instagram TV. You can watch them as much as you like. Leave a comment down below. Share this. That's one of the best ways, you guys, that it can help me out is if you share this feed on your timeline. Share this feed with others so that we can help provide them the hope that they need for everything that's going on right now. I hope this helps you guys out this morning. Appreciate you guys being here. Let me pray for you guys. Father, I just want to say thanks for my friends from all over the world. Thank you for the fact that we have technology that we get to do this together. Father, help us to live in boldness. Father, help us to hear your word, to hear your commands, but also to hear the incredible adventure that you're inviting us up into. Man, it's exciting, but man, I don't want to squander this life. And I don't just want to treat it, the salvation that you've given us, Father, that you've saved us from our sin. You've saved us from ourselves and a life apart from you, but you've saved us from that, Lord. May we not squander that like a Willy Wonka ticket and just coast through the rest of life. We are sinners saved by grace, Lord, but as a result of that beautiful gift of your grace, Lord, may we respond with a life well lived as an act of worship back to you. We pray this in the precious name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Love you guys. Hope you guys having a great, great weekend. Thanks for being here. Leave me a comment down below. We got 1 minute left. I'd love to hear what stick out for you. Leave a comment down below. I got 1 minute left here on Instagram, but leave me a comment down below. Let me know what stuck out to you this morning. And then we'll get our day started. What stuck out to you? Thank you for that nice little message. Thank you, Revo. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate you. Scott, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys being here. I will share my testimony sometime. You can see my testimony on YouTube. If you go to Noah Fine Art, you can check that out. Also, hopefully you guys have been able to see the Fear Hunters actual movie little trailer that I made for the book on YouTube. You can check that out. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Appreciate all these kind messages. It's awesome. Anna, have a good one. Chuggy's have a good one. Tom, have a good one. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.